Hi, my name is Kathleen Young, and I am your student's APUSH or AP United States History teacher this year. I thought I'd do back to school night a little bit differently. I thought I'd send you all a video with all of the basic content that you needed to know about the course, the real dry stuff. And then back to school night, I can go over a little bit of my philosophy of education. I can show you guys some of the technology and really answer any questions that you may have. It's the stuff I never get time to do because I'm trying to go through the syllabus with you guys. So I thought maybe if I do that here with this video, that way we could really spend back to school night making sure that all of your questions get answered and that you have the support that you need in order to help your student be successful in my class. So my contact information is here. You can also find it in SIS, my email address, as well as my phone number. That phone number goes directly to my classroom, however it doesn't ring during the school day. So the best way to get a hold of me is by email. I can get back to you right away, or at least when I'm not directly teaching, and so it is the fastest way for me to be able to respond. Okay, so let me give you some information about the course. So this is a college level course taught at the high school level. The idea is that we are designing this class in order to provide students with the skills and factual information needed to deal critically with the problems and issues of United States history. It's to prepare them for intermediate and advanced courses by making the demands similar to those in full-year introductory college courses. So this is similar to History 101 and 102, those survey-level courses, so that if your student scores high enough on the AP exam, they are able to go straight into some of the more intermediate and advanced class history classes at college. The goals of this class is that students will be able to assess historical material, their relevance, their reliability, and importance. This is both on historical material, but hopefully it also helps them figure out the skills in order to be successful in assessing material that they encounter in the day-to-day. Our students in social media encounter a lot of different information, and they should be able to interpret whether or not that information is relevant and factual or whether or not it's just propaganda. Students need to be able to know whether or not it's a legitimate news source or The Onion. And so the idea is that by assessing historical material, they start honing those skills so that when we start looking at current events, they are able to interpret them accordingly. They deal with evidence and interpretations presented in historical scholarships. How did historians of old interpret things, and how did current historians interpret it? What is the evidence that historians give when they're interpreting it? How does the bias play in? Because everyone carries it. Developing the skills necessary to arrive at conclusions on the basis of informed judgment. They are going to be having their opinions about historical events based on the information that they receive. So making sure that is informed judgment, that they're making these decisions based on that evidence, and then taking those informed judgments and putting them into an essay format. So this is the basic text. You should see this textbook at home. It's American History by Henrietta. This book, I've asked students to keep at home and not to bring to school. They do have an online version of this textbook that students have access to. They can register for it through Blackboard, and so they can always access the online textbook in school. I also have paper copies at school for students to use if they need them. It just helps the book stay nicer, and then students don't have to worry about losing them if they keep them at home for the entirety of the school year. I asked for them back in May after the AP exam. We'll also use different document readers. My favorite one to use is American Issues. This is not a book that students will bring home, but rather a book I'll use in class to pull primary sources and secondary sources from. In terms of grading, we have the 4 categories: mastery, skill demonstration, knowledge, and practice. Mastery may include the multiple choice tests and the short answer tests. The skills demonstration grades include all the essays, essay practice, and then also document analysis. So anytime that we're working with the skills necessary to be successful on the AP test, that would go into skill demonstration. Knowledge may include the reading quizzes, the reading guides, the U-Pick, which is an activity we do where students can watch a movie, read a book, or visit a historical site. It's an enrichment activity we do every quarter. It may include this parts of the summer assignment. Anything that is basic knowledge goes into the knowledge grade, and then practice, which is only 5%, could include any additional homework, video guides, graphic organizers, any sort of practice that we might have that is a small scale. Each student is expected to monitor his or her own progress. I do try to send out weekly progress reports. I also try to make sure you guys stay as updated as possible, but please make sure you're checking SIS on a regular basis in order to stay abreast of what's going on in the classroom, and then your students should be doing the same as well. So I want to show you some of the questions, because when we look at the when we're talking about the exams, when we're talking about long essay questions and document-based questions and short answer questions, a lot of times parents don't know what we're talking about. So this is an example of a multiple choice question. It's a stimulus-based question. So the stimulus is that picture there. It's actually a primary source picture. It comes from it was a drawing that was created of the Aztecs in the 16th century. And so the question, the multiple choice question, is not necessarily based on this drawing. It's not like, what does this drawing show? But rather it's saying the conditions shown in this drawing are a result of what following development. So it's all of the stimulus-based questions are pictures, they're maps, they're political cartoons, or they're reading passages, primary or secondary passages. But the idea is that students aren't looking at their reading comprehension, but rather making sure that they understand what is the source trying to tell them, and then what basis does it have in historical context. Like this particular question, which is looking at, well, that box isn't on the right thing. It should be on the B, which is the unintended consequences of the Columbian Exchange. This is also the unintended consequences of copying and pasting slides from a previous presentation. So specific facts. Your students may say, oh, I've got to come up with specific facts or specific evidence. So these are often nouns, dates, documents, events, people, okay, anything like that is specific evidence. What specific supports can you give to an argument? If I can ask for an example, you're not specific enough, and this is all support for every essay. So let's look at the essays. First, we have the short answer question. The short answer question is literally 23 lines. That's all they get. So they need to get to the point. They'll label each part separately, and all of the questions have A, B, and C. So for example, if we look at that same picture, this is a way that that picture is put into an SAQ. So you take that illustration of the Aztecs and use your knowledge to explain the main point of the image in context to one of these following things. Explain one development that led to the main point, and then one piece of historical evidence, that specific evidence I just mentioned. And so your student will use 23 lines to answer all three of these questions in entirety. And we will continue to practice that. They'll have 2 short answer questions on every test, and they will have multiple practice opportunities throughout the year besides tests to hone this skill, so that when they get to the AP exam at the end of the year, it's routine, and they just know how to do it without even thinking. The LEQ and the DBQ. So the LEQ is a 4 to 5 paragraph essay. Introduction's the first paragraph with the thesis statement and context, what's going on in the time period that makes this argument relevant. Then the body paragraphs are their supporting evidence, sort of a smaller thesis, and then the conclusion. So for example, if you're discussing the benefits and drawbacks for European and American societies resulting from the contact and trade that developed around 1500, where the students would be discussing how the Columbian Exchange, that exchange of goods between the New World and the Old World, were both positive and negative, okay? So that's an LEQ. That's the type of basic question, and then they would be pulling from their own knowledge from what they've read and what they've learned in class to be able to answer that question. The DBQ is very similar, but they're given documents like this particular image in order to support their argument. And so they would, in essence, be using those documents as evidence as well as outside information. So, for example, with the grading, class examinations, exams will be based on periods, years covered in a particular unit. So, era 1 and 2 is 1400 to 1750. It's really exploration and colonization. That will be their first exam. There are at least 2 per quarter. So first quarter has era 1 and 2 and era 3. And then the tests are made up of multiple choice questions like the one you saw and short answer responses. Students will take multiple practice AP, multiple choice exams in the weeks leading up to the AP exam. We make sure that they've seen so many of these questions, they're very comfortable with them when they get to the actual AP exam. Second chance examinations. After each period examination, students will have the opportunity to complete test corrections and then take the second chance exam. This must be completed within 2 weeks of the original exam or before the end of the quarter. And if this is less than 2 weeks from the original exam, and I'm really honest with students about the amount of time they have. And the final grade for the exam will be the higher of the two scores. Students have the opportunity to do second chance no matter what grade they get on the first chance. They don't have to score below an 80% in order to have a second chance. So if they score in that 80 to 99% and they want to take that second chance, we support it. One, we believe that their grade should be a reflection of what they know. And so if every student wants to get 100%, because that means they have 100% of knowledge, we fully support that. The other thing is that we believe that students need to have the opportunity to practice this as much as possible. So if they take a second chance and it offers them more practice and seeing more questions, then we want them to have that. The final exam, students will have a final exam assessment during the designated final exam period. The final exam is a mixture of a multiple choice exam that's taken before the AP exam and then a final project which is given during the final exam period in June. Final grades. Quarter grades are calculated using the weighting of assignments listed under typical assignments and weights. The final exam will count as 1/9 of the grade. So it ends up being about 22% per quarter and 12% for the final exam. With parent communication, all parents will receive weekly emailed progress reports through SIS, and then I also try to send out more detailed progress reports on a regular basis. For questions or issues, please email me, and not only do I update Blackboard regularly, but also I have set up other forms of communication. So the daily work is really reading the textbook at home and completing the reading guide. There are terms to define and questions to answer, and students may use these reading guides on their reading quizzes. All the reading quizzes are open note. They do turn in the reading guides for credit after the quiz. The idea behind the reading guides is not for them to be able to necessarily, well, let's look at this. So, I have created a Google site for the students to use as a resource. Students are supposed to bookmark it and are using it on a daily basis. This website has the daily agenda and other important information. So if students are absent, they should be able to see what they missed through the agenda and additional links. Most of the work will be turned in through Google Classroom. So I wanted to show you guys what these look like. So this is the website that you can ask your students to look at. Okay, I like to use memes at the beginning of every class, so you can see some of the memes that I've picked. Under calendars, you can see the quarterly calendar. Go. You can see the calendar for the whole quarter. Students have access to this, so you can see when things are due, what's coming up, and all of the assignments for the entire quarter. So there should be no surprises for students as long as they're paying attention. Then we have the daily agenda, and the daily agenda has all of the information for the week. So if we pull open this current daily agenda, for this week, you can see that, for example, students will be registering for the AP Classroom. They will be taking a reading quiz, writing a long essay question, and then getting ready for the Arrow 1 and 2 exam. Okay. And then the other thing is the reading guides. So all the reading guides are available here. And the thing about the reading guides, oops, here we go, is the reading guides have the terms that they're not only supposed to define, but they also need to understand why they're significant. And then they have the guided reading questions. And with the guided reading questions, I am not looking for students to be able to answer these questions in complete sentences, but rather to take notes on the content of the chapter that answers that question. Okay, so what challenge did first settlers in Jamestown face? Number 4. I'm not looking for them to answer that in complete sentences. The first settlers of Jamestown experienced these challenges, blah, 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 blah. But rather to take notes on what all the challenges were and why they had to face them. This will help them be not only successful on reviewing for the AIR exams, but also on the reading quizzes. And that's something that we've been working for clarification in recent weeks. Then I have important links. I have the link to Blackboard here. I also have the link to Google Classroom. Students will be turning in work through Google Classroom, and here are the classroom codes for students to join. So Google Classroom looks like this. Okay, students will be able to click on their various assignments here. So here is the Chapter 4 reading guide. There will look a little bit differently. They'll see this. Will they be able to click on the reading guide? They'll be able to see the terms that they need to complete, the guided reading questions, the review questions, and then these turning point questions where they're explaining why each of these events is a turning point in history. How did it create change? And I wanted to show you these different websites because for the most part I'll be working through both the website and Google Classroom. Blackboard is going to be used for the reading quizzes and sort of a holding cell of all of the various handouts and things like that. But for the most part, students will be working with these two Google-based things. So if you have a question, please ask your student to view those two pieces of technology. Okay, so hopefully that gives you an idea of what the reading guides look like so that you can help your student as they're preparing for the reading guides and going through the content. Blackboard contains all the information. It's got the assignments, current announcements, calendars. They'll take their reading quizzes through Blackboard. Possible updates will be emailed through Blackboard, so it's essential that they put their current email, that they check on a regular basis, and then all questions can be directed to me by email. In terms of makeup work, assignments, tests, and quizzes are due on the day that the student returns from an unexcused absence. If they missed an absence assignments due to an absence, they have a certain amount of time to make it up, depending on the length of the absence. And of course, if it's over a long period of time, we will need to discuss sort of the timeline for making things up and things like that. So, if there are any questions, please email me and set up an appointment. Also, I hope that you'll bring any questions that you may have to Back to School Night. I look forward to meeting all of you then. If you are unable to make it, please let me know, and I will be glad to send you anything I go over on Back to School Night, or to set up an appointment to meet with you directly. I look forward to meeting you all, and I have to be honest, I love your students that I've met this year. I've really enjoyed working with them for the past couple of weeks. They are delightful. I am happy going to work every day. You just have wonderful, wonderful kids, and I look forward to working with them this year. So, see you on Thursday.